I'm going to settle the debate between having A-kit suspension and being race fit. Which one is more important? If you're not a professional rider, you can't ride and train every day, but you still want to give it a good crack on race day and be able to be competitive. So we're going to look at some footage here from AJ, who was testing out some 10 grand A-kit suspension. And he's got some great footage here of riding with his coaches as well. So the first thing that I hear with A-kit suspension is that it lets you soak up more of the bumps and it's less likely to be able to kick up and make your body work harder, so you're going to use less energy. And so the thing is with this thinking is you would think, okay, there's some magical number, there's some magical suspension setup that would mean that my body doesn't have to do any work, it's not going to feel any bumps, it's not going to exhaust me, and I can just drop money and money and money and set up and set up and set up and be able to ride without having any fitness or having any strength or having to worry about my nutrition. And the thing is with that mindset is it's just not true. What's going to happen is you're going to get out here and ride and have the 10 grand suspension like this rider does here, and you're going to be disappointed because his body is still working hard. Even though the bike is handling really, really well, and it's not kicking up over the bumps, and he's got the back wheel on the floor more, and he can put it into tougher sections without having to put himself at risk of coming off, and he can go faster, and all of those great things, his body is still working hard. He still has to stand up and get in the position. So look, let's have a look here. So when he's in this position here going to the corner, he still has to stand up. His legs are still working hard to hold himself in position. If his legs weren't working hard and his upper body wasn't working hard to keep his elbows up and hold him in position, he would fly off the track and he wouldn't be able to hold all the skills and positions that he has. All the stuff that he does with AJ, all the stuff that he teaches his riders, he wouldn't actually be able to do. And so you can build that strength through just riding all the time like these guys probably do, or you can get in the gym and build that strength if you're only riding once a week. But if we have a look here, goes around the corner, that's probably his biggest amount of rest. And then as he comes out, again, as he comes into the bumps, he's up on the pegs in the attack position. He's looking forward. All this is working hard. His legs are working really, really hard to be able to grip the bike, keep him up on the pegs and keep it in the positions that he needs to be in. And there's no suspension setup. Even though he's got 10 grand's worth of suspension in his bike right there, he can't spend 15 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand to stop his legs or arms having to do any work. They still have to be able to work. So when you shift that focus and you focus on fitness and acknowledge that bike setup's important, but there's no setup that you can get with your bike that's going to cause you to do no work at all, then you can start working on your fitness, start working on your strength. The stronger you can get yourself, the lighter you can get the bike to feel. The lighter you can get the bike to feel, the less energy you're going to use when you ride. So yes, suspension will let you use less energy, but you're still using a lot of energy. You're still using a lot of strength. So you still have to have those things now to be able to have consistent lap times all the way through the race, not just be fast for the first couple of laps. The other thing that riders say is that A-kit suspension will get rid of arm pump. And the truth is that if you think that bike setup is the only source of arm pump, then you're just going to go down this long rabbit hole that you're never going to be able to get the answer to. You're never going to get rid of arm pump if you're just relying on bike setup and suspension and just keep throwing money and time and effort at setup. Setup is part of it. The bike has to be set up. But having 10 grand suspension and having stock suspension that's actually being set up for you doesn't mean that, you're getting arm pump because you've got some stock suspension and you haven't spent 10 grand on A-kit suspension. That's not how it works. What happens with arm pump is it's your body not being able to hold onto the bike using its major muscle groups. So if I stand up here and I'm in the attack position, I've got my legs working, I've got my arse working, I've got my core working, I've got my upper back working. If we have a look at some of the footage here and we go past some of this GoPro stuff and we shift to actual riding. When we have a look here when he's riding, his legs are working, okay? His calves are working, his feet are working, his core's working, his shoulders are working, his upper body's working. All of that is working to grip him on the bike. When he's doing those things properly, the arms do very little work. 80% of the work is done through these big muscle groups here in the legs and through the core and through the arms. All those big muscles are doing most of the work to hold him on the bike, with only 20% or less actually holding onto the handlebars. So the big muscles are doing most of the work. What happens though for riders is as these big muscle groups start to fatigue and aren't working as well, then the arms have to do more of the work because those big muscle groups aren't doing anything. So that's where your nutrition comes in. That's where making sure that you've got enough energy to be able to last the race all the way through. That's where making sure that you're strong enough and you have the endurance to be able to be up on the pegs and be in the positions that you want to be in all the way through the race. The third thing riders say is that A-kit suspension reduces crashes and reduces your chance of injury. And that may or may not be true. Yes, it will absorb the bumps better. Okay. Yes, you will be able to hit things a lot harder. Yes, the forks will absorb more. yes, you will be able to hit any type of bump or ledge a lot harder than what you normally would without the bike sending a whole heap of feedback through your body. That is all true. However, when you do hit bumps and you don't get any feedback, you're able to push harder and go faster. When you go faster, your focus needs to be even sharper. You're hitting the bumps even harder than what you normally would. So your body is still using a lot of effort and a lot of energy to be able to ride the bike how you want to ride it, because you're actually riding the bike faster. You're not riding the bike slower or at the same speed as what you were before. So it's not necessarily going to reduce crashes. What's going to reduce crashes is you not fatiguing and being able to ride the bike consistently all the way through the race. The chance of you crashing with having a high level of fatigue is going to be much higher compared to you having the stock suspension set up compared to having A-kit suspension. Just because you've got stock suspension, as long as it's set up for you properly, for your body weight, for your level of riding and for the type of riding that you do, that's not a reason for crashing all the time. That doesn't mean that you need to go and get A-kit suspension. So when you change your focus and you start to focus on getting your body ready, that's what's actually going to reduce your crashes. It's either your skills and you're pushing too hard, or you're just getting tired, which is what happens for a lot of the riders. You do all of the things that AJ talks about, and you might follow the YouTube videos or have a riding coach that you follow, that you go to, and you learn all the stuff and all the techniques, but then you go out and ride and you can't execute that all the way through the race. And the reason that you can't do that is because you get tired. And you get tired, all of those things that you've learned go out the window. Your focus starts to get sloppy. You make stupid mistakes. Your reaction time's a lot slower. So it doesn't matter, like this rider here, it doesn't matter if you got 10 grand worth of suspension. The mistakes aren't coming from the suspension. The mistakes are coming from the rider that's actually riding it and him getting tired and not making the right choices while he's riding. The fifth thing that comes up is A-kit suspension gives you a competitive edge over the other riders and racers that you're racing with. And again, that may or may not be true. Based on the testing they did here in this video, okay, they felt like they were good. They had good lap times and they're fast. They said that they could hit things harder with the bike. However, even if you got faster lap times with A-kit suspension, okay, even if you were actually faster on the bike and you could knock, let's say you knocked 4 seconds a lap off, okay, it made a huge difference for you and you knocked 4 seconds a lap off from having this 10 grand A-kit suspension. Great, that's awesome. But that's not racing. Racing is not a time trial. Racing is a race. You have to be able to maintain that speed and those lap times all the way through the race. So even if you're 4 seconds quicker for one lap, if your body doesn't have the fitness, the strength, the endurance, the nutrition there to be able to go the distance, then your lap times are just going to drop off like that. Okay, you're probably just going to drop off faster because you're going faster at the start and you're going to fatigue quicker, and then lap times are going to start to drop off at the end, which is not the goal of racing. The goal of racing is to be able to hold consistent lap times and be fast all the way through the race, not just be fast for a lap. So when you go down that rabbit hole of just putting money and time and effort into A-kit suspension, then the thing that's going to happen is you're just going to be disappointed because you're going to be faster, your lap times are going to be better at practice, but it's not necessarily going to translate into results on race day. When you can work on the fitness and the endurance side and get the rider as good as what the bike is, like these guys, then you can hold your race speed all the way through. And when you can hold your race speed all the way through, that's when you're actually going to see the results on race day, not necessarily from just having the suspension. So you've got to have the bike set up and the rider set up. They're 50-50. Like, you can't have the rider set up and have a shitty bike, and you can't have a great bike and a rider that's not set up and doesn't have the fitness. You have to have both to be able to get the race the results that you want. But it comes down to identifying that, hey, the rider needs work as well. It's not just all about the getting the bike bombed and then, giving the rider a bacon and egg McMuffin on the way to the track and a couple of Powerades and then going, oh yeah, it should be good. We missed number 4. So the fourth thing that riders say about A-kit suspension is that it keeps the back wheel on the floor so that you can get more traction and go faster. So like our previous point, exactly the same. Yes, having the back wheel on the floor will give you more traction. It will allow you to be able to go faster. You should be able to get faster lap times. But the thing that's going to get you better results on race day is actually keeping the back wheel on the floor. So if we have a look, is keeping the back wheel on the floor, but being able to ride the bike consistently and ride it at the same speed. So if you have a look here, the back wheel does track well over the floor. It looks like it handles the bumps well, it goes over the jumps well, looks like it goes around the corners well. It does all of those things well. But those things don't matter if the rider can't ride the bike hard all the way through the race. If he can only ride the bike like this for a lap, and then as he goes through the laps and he gets to lap 10, his lap times are dropping off like that, then it doesn't matter how good the suspension setup is. He can have the suspension, the absolute best of the best of the best, and he can have even better stuff than what he's got here. He can have the stuff of Jet Lawrence's bike or of some other pro's bike, okay, that money can't even buy, and it's still not going to matter because the rider has to be able to ride the bike hard all the way through the race. Yes, the bike has to be set up, but the rider has to be able to push the bike and ride the bike all the way through the race. If the rider can't do that, then the amount of money that you spend on suspension is going to be irrelevant, and you're still not going to see the results that you want to be able to see on race day. As always, if you'd like some help with this stuff and you want to be able to get race fit and you know the suspension is the path that you've already been down and you don't need to keep going down that path and you need to get your body ready, then now is the time to be able to do that in the off season. You've got 3 or 4 months where you've got less riding, less racing, less traveling, less bike ride. Now is the best time to be able to dial in your off the bike stuff to make sure that you're ready for next season. If that's you, apply for the Fast Laps program using the link below in the description or the comments, or reach out to you, see if we can help, and then we can go from there.